This is like gonna make me emotional. I grew up like my parents came from nothing. Like my dad came from nothing, and he grew up. He was CFO of Chevron. So I know what it was like to have nothing, and I know what it was like to have. So I got both. But what I'm trying to teach her is that there's no limits to money, and that's not something that I grew up with. That's something that I learned later on in life, because although I watched my dad do a lot, my mom was still doing what she could. So no one ever told me, hey, you can do anything and you can make as much money as you can. It was always get a stable job and make sure you have security and whatnot. But what I'm teaching my daughter is, whenever she says, oh, I can't do this, I'm like, you choose that you can't do this. It's not, you can do anything. You can make millions of dollars. You can. So welcome to the Mental Real Estate Podcast. I have Sarah with me, Sarah Desamours out of Florida. If you don't know her, you should follow her on Instagram. She's hilarious now. Some notable things about you is that you speak 4 different languages. Fun fact too is she moved from Canada to Florida. Didn't know anybody, who started over, and this is what really inspires her to do what she does. Gonna get started with some challenging questions. I'm up for it. A daughter, and she's amazing salsa dancer, amazing just human being, from what I've saw. Yeah, I'm lucky to have her. Oh, what did you learn about money growing up, and what are you teaching your daughter? Oh my God. This is like gonna make me emotional. I grew up like my parents came from nothing. Like my dad came from nothing, and he grew up. He was CFO of Chevron. So I know what it was like to have nothing, and I know what it was like to have. So I got both. But what I'm trying to teach her is that there's no limits to money, and that's not something that I grew up with. That's something that I learned later on in life, because although I watched my dad do a lot, my mom was still doing what she could. So no one ever told me, hey, you can do anything and you can make as much money as you can. It was always get a stable job and make sure you have security and whatnot. But what I'm teaching my daughter is, whenever she says, oh, I can't do this, I'm like, you choose that you can't do this. It's not, you can do anything. You can make millions of dollars. You can. I watch kids on like chats making millions of dollars. Not TikTok. I'm like, I'm telling her from a young age, there is no limit to how much money you can make, but you have to put in the work. And I'm also very open with her about money. I show her my expenses. Wow. I show her, like, when we go on all these trips. A lot of trips. I love traveling. I love traveling. So I actually show her, like, I'll tell her how much things cost me. So when she gets $40, $50, I'm like, you see, that's like not even her dinner. You know what I mean? And you know, not the restaurants you guys are going to. True. I'm like, seriously, like, I'm teaching her young, because unfortunately, my parents are old school and Haitian. Right. It's not something we talked about growing up. And I'm noticing that ever since I started doing that, when I have to go to work, or if I have to leave her with someone because I have to do showings, she's 10 times more understanding. She wants to continue going on these trips. Me. Amongst other things. I love that you do that. And I love how you transmuted that energy. I mean, it's motivating me too. Like, even me talking about it with her. And the same way that every day I make her say affirmations. And when I hear her say affirmations, sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't do my affirmations today. But it's like a habit for her. She does it like without thinking. And I wish, that's one of the things I wish I had growing up. So I'm giving that to her. I love that. And that's a great segue to I believe that the most valuable piece of real estate you can own is your mind, and passing down a mindset. So that is beautiful that you're doing that. And that no one taught you to do that, right? So it brings me to a really interesting question about scarcity versus abundance. Yeah, that's huge. So how did you make that move from, let's say scarcity is a city in your mind, right? And then you move to the land of abundance. How did you make that move? And then something like click and you just knew? Or that's a great question. So I've always been a big reader, and I'm a big nerd, and I love reading. And there's 2 things that really changed me. When I was much younger, like 17, 18-ish, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Same. Which was like mind-blowing for me, especially living in Canada, which is very like, more, not socialist, but very like, there's ceilings, there's a lot of taxes. And I remember reading that book going, what? This is crazy. And then it might be a little controversial, but I read a book also very young, and that's a book I read almost every year. It's called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Okay. It's a very powerful Machiavellian, it's not evil, but it's very, very like, okay, from the beginning of time, you know, in the Roman times, how did people have power? And they talk about money and about negotiation. It's such a good book. And from then on, that's when I started reading more self-help books. You know, when you're younger, you read more fiction, you read more. I love autobiographies as well. Though I think those are great also to learn people's stats. But I started getting into the self-help on my own terms, right? Like on my own terms. So reading more books on self-help and on abundance mindset. And I think that what really did it for me was basically becoming a realtor. And I remember someone told me, you should be blessed that you're in an industry that the only maximum that you make is the maximum you give for yourself. And that really like you know when you're like, you're like my brain is everywhere. No, but it's true. We have no ceiling. We have no ceiling. There is unlimited income potential in sales. And that really just changed my mindset on things. And also the words that I say, I'm very careful with how I speak. I never say I don't have that, or like if I don't have something, I'll add yet. If I really want it. I'm really big into doing vision boards. I'm really big into affirmations. I actually had a vision board party for my daughter as well. And what's crazy, on her vision board, she put a bunch of cherry blossoms and a bunch of different things, and we ended up going to Japan. Because she really wanted to go. So everything that you put out there is going to happen. So your words are really powerful. I love all of that. How much money and time do you think that you spent on working on yourself to become the person you are today? Okay, that's another great question. I think it's really important to invest in yourself. You know, people invest in a bunch of different things, which is totally fine, but I think it's important to invest in yourself, in your mind. I've done a lot, you know it, I've gone on a lot of spiritual retreats, and those are not cheap, you know, and I will spend money for that, because healing, if you're good inside, you're going to be good outside. So, you know, therapy is really important. Coaching is important if you need it. Getting mentors. Sometimes I've flown places just to meet with someone, that just to have an hour of their time. I've done this. And he's actually one of my clients. So I went out of my way to spend Thanksgiving with him and his family, just because I'm like, it's important. It's an important time. So I think that, I don't know how much money I spent, but it is a priority. Like thousands of dollars. Like I can't put a number to it because it changes every year, but I will easily spend $5,000 to $7,000 to go on a spiritual retreat. I will spend almost $1,000 a month on my hooks, right? Like on workouts and on yoga. The reason why I say that is because you're right. A lot of people spend money on the external and they don't think about spending money on the internal. But I believe that so there's a universal principle called as within, so without. So what it looks like in there will reflect in the external world. 1000%. For you, how do you define wealth? How do I define wealth? Wealth is health. Wealth is health, mental health, physical health. You can have all the money in the world. If you're ill, you can't do anything about it. You can have all the money in the world. If you're depressed and suicidal, you're going to be miserable. So I think it's health in general. I've been through some health issues and I know what it's like to go through that. So I think that as long as you have health, you can accomplish anything in the world. Yes, I agree. And then my final question is, what is the one thing that you learned from your wealthiest clients that you're just so learned? From my wealthiest clients, the one I actually admire, because you know, you can have some wealthy clients and they're depressed. I have some wealthy clients that are, because you do sports and entertainment. Some clients that are extremely wealthy, they're not in sports and entertainment. They were able to build amazing companies. And two things I learned from them. One is that family is really important. Having love and being loved and having children and just being around people that you love, it's so important. And number two, one thing that I noticed that they all have in common is the health is wealth thing. All of them take their health very seriously, and this goes to their loved ones, to their children. They live a very healthy lifestyle. They're careful about alcohol. They're not getting crazy wasted all the time. Of course, we have exceptions, but those are two things that, you know, I observe a lot, and those are some commonalities. Oh, thank you for sharing that for the people out there who are probably drinking still. I mean, I drink once in a while, but not crazy. But I noticed that when you take your health seriously, it's hard to drink a lot, because then if you have a workout the next morning, you feel terrible. For them. That's what for them. I can't. It's not for me. Not for me. Yeah. For the people who are starting their wealth building journey, right, their first home, what is advice that you would give them? Either the number one mistake you see other first time home buyers make, or just advice
if somebody is getting started and they don't know where to start?
So if they don't, well, the first thing I'll tell anyone doing that is if it's not something that you want, write it down. Write it down. Say, I want to own a home. It can be as simple as that, or I want to own a home buy. Just by writing it down, it's going to activate something in your soul and in your brain to make it happen.
For sure.
Have you ever done this?
Yeah, I think Brian Tracy talked about that.
It's really deep, and if you could maybe have a picture or something that you can put in front of you, because those days that you don't want to call off work, those days that you're supposed to save money but you want to blow it on something else or whatnot, you're going to remember, you're going to look at that picture, or you're going to look at what you wrote, or you're going to remember it, and it's going to help you make better decisions in general. And it's really important to surround yourself with actual professionals. If you're a nurse, for example, even though you might like going on Zillow or on these websites, get with a professional. We're going to guide you. It's going to make the process 10 times easier and way more pleasant for you. The entire thing. So start with your vision and then go with the right people. Ask for referrals, recommendations, and then it's just going to be more pleasant, because if you don't do that, it can be very
and it's so funny. One of my clients, they said they were going to try to do it on their own. Super intelligent VP of funny thing is, like, so they interviewed with me, and I asked, I was like, what exactly were you going to do if the escrow went crazy? What are you going to do? Like, how do you know the seller's giving you all the disclosures? So I agree with you.
I tell people, like, I'm not going to give myself a haircut. I'm not going to do myself a cleaning. I'm going to go to a dentist. I'm going to go to a professional, someone who's been doing it for a long time and who knows what they're doing. It's the same for the home buying process. Things can go RE, like, even if you don't have an attorney. I even tell people, it's better to have an attorney than a title company.
I agree.
Surround yourself with professionals, and the whole thing will be pleasant, and it'll be an unforgettable, beautiful experience.
And I know I said board of directors or people that are on their team. Who do you think should be you like sports?
I love sports.
So, like, I don't know, let's say it's basketball and it's the starting line, right, that you need on your team. Who are the 5 people you would say in general, especially in building wealth?
Okay, in building wealth, I think it's important to have either a friend, someone that you get along with who's non-judgmental, someone who's open-minded, who's doing better than you. And the non-judgmental part is really important, because sometimes we have people that are doing better than us, and then we'll ask them questions and they kind of like roll their eyes, or, oh, you should know this. You'll get the vibe, you get their energy. Someone who's doing much better than you. I think it's important to have someone who has a growth mindset. Maybe they're not exactly doing better than you, but they always have a growth mindset. They're reading a lot. They're able to take a step back and give you good criticism. I think it's better, whatever trouble that you're having, if you're having trouble with your business, or if you want to grow your business, get a business coach. Get a coach for whatever it is that you need. When it comes to even wealth building, I think that workouts, it's kind of like sports, it helps you build discipline. So when it comes to wealth or any type of success, you need discipline. So having an accountability partner. You might have someone who has similar goals to you. It's, hey, let's hold each other accountable. It could be a friend, it could be a cousin or a colleague or whatnot. And I think the 5th person is, depending on your faith, having someone who's really strong in that faith, who can pray for you, can, if you're going, because it's tough.
It is tough.
Life is tough in general, and just having someone that you can call them and they'll pray for you, like that, or they'll burn sage, whatever it is that you're into, they'll do whatever it is that's needed for you. Okay, so I think like a spiritual guide.
Okay, I love also. So, just a recap for people. The top 5 lineup is to find someone that's doing better than you, that's not going to judge you, whatever field you're in. An accountability partner is something that you recommended, a spiritual guide, and maybe I missed the 5th one.
The 5th one, I think, is someone who I'm not sure, like, I don't remember, but it could probably be someone who, they're not necessarily doing better than you, but they have the discernment. They have the discernment, they can listen, they're wise.
Okay.
Like, I'm thinking of, I remember my grandma when she was alive. Like, she wasn't someone who was like super wealthy, but she always gave me good advice, and she would always listen. So
find somebody, like, find your grandma or grandma like.
Be a friend. I have friends that are super comfortable in their job, and they're not trying to become millionaires, but they're just wonderful friends, and they're there for you. They can give you other advice when it comes to life stuff.
Right. I love that, and thank you.
My pleasure.